Welcome to the Stop Down Photography Podcast, Episode 10. I'm your host, Scott Davenport, and today's topic is the Metadata Time Machine. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Episode 10 reached double digits for the podcast. Now, that's a milestone, a notable piece of data, and it's data I want to talk about today, or more specifically, metadata. A few episodes back, I think it was episode 4, I made a reference to metadata, using metadata to help you grow your craft. And you may be thinking, metadata, grow as an artist? Really, Scott? What do you mean here? Nothing could be less creative than slogging through images and adding keywords and all that kind of stuff. All right, I get that. I see that argument, and I understand that. And admittedly, I'm kind of a metadata junkie because I use just about every tag and flag that there is in some of these tools. I use ratings, color labels, GPS tags, keywords. It's almost like I can't find something I don't use. And that sounds kind of tedious. However, there is value to be had, and value that in the long run will help you push forward as an artist. If you're still groaning or wincing or squirming uncomfortably in your seat, I've got good news for you. You don't need to add a lot of metadata. For the purpose of growing as an artist, you will not become buried in tagging and flagging. I'll divide metadata into two buckets. First, there's organizational metadata. This is the stuff that we use to sort and classify our photos. Starts with our folder structure, but other stuff, date, time, albums, collections, flags, keywords, all that kind of stuff. Then there's artistic metadata. This is the data that will help you grow as an artist, and it's a subset, a small subset. I'll make the case that there's 4 things you need to care about: the date and time the photo was taken, the camera settings used, the lens used, and a rating. That's it. Those 4 things, and you have a healthy metadata base to grow as an artist. And more good news, the first 3, date and time, camera settings, lens used, those are already captured by your camera when you press the shutter. You get them for free. That leaves rating. That's the piece of information you need to provide. And chances are you're doing this already with some sort of rating system for your photos. You need that to grow as an artist. You need to distinguish between your good photos, your very good photos, and your great photos. I think it needs to be more than just a like, don't like. You can't use just the pick flag or the thumbs up or thumbs down flag. You need a little bit more. Let me take a short detour and describe a portion of my workflow. The very first thing I do when images come into my library is rate them. Every image gets a rating, and I use the 5-star scale. It's the most natural fit for me. 1 star is junk, and in practice, I really don't use it. 2-star is either something I think is going to be junk or something I'm going to use for an educational purpose. I know this is a bad photo, and I'm going to use it to show why it's a bad photo. Or in the personal space, if it's a special memory that the photo's not great, but it's a special memory, I got to keep it. 3 stars is a photo I like. 4-star is a solid capture. It's something I want to spend time with, I want to process, and I want to see if that shot is going to grow into a 5-star photo, which is one of those out-of-the-world bangers of a shot, and those ones are few and far between. Now, you don't have to use this scale. That's just what I use. You don't even need to use ratings if you really don't want to use star ratings. I just think it's the most natural fit. The important thing, distinguish between your good, very good, and great photos. And small sidebar, the rating of a photo can change as you work on it. It may go up or down. You thought the photo was going to be great. You start processing it, and it's like, this has actually got some problems, or vice versa. So they don't need to be static when you do that initial rating. It may change. And in the end, when you have a final photo, it has a rating that is within your system. You need to do this for the long haul. Invest the time, be diligent, be consistent, add the ratings, and make it part of your ongoing workflow. Why? You're building a time machine, and a time machine powered by metadata. Now, how does this connect to improving as an artist? Well, we're almost there. I'm going to get you there. But first, you've got to use this metadata to build a few collections of your work. You've got the ratings in place. And every modern asset manager, it's very easy to create albums or collections of your higher rated photos within a given time frame. Be a year, a half year, a quarter, whatever you're measuring, measuring yourself against yourself. Right now, for example, we're in 2020, in early 2020. I'll make a collection of my best photos from 2019 and my best photos from 2018 and use those to compare my work from 2 years ago to my work from last year and see how I've changed as an artist. Have I grown? Have I regressed? Have I really done nothing interesting? That's where it all connects back to the artistry. Now, there's a few things that I'll look for when I'm comparing these collections of work, my older work to my more recent work, to look for those growth patterns. And that's the first one, measuring growth. Some simple assessments. Do you have more photos that you've rated higher? Temper that against how many photos did you take in a given time period. So you can do a little light algebraic math to say this is the percentage of photos I come away with that I'm proud of. And, maybe your rates, 8% of the photos that I take, I think are pretty good. It could be more, it could be less. But just having a general view of, how many good photos did I take in a given period? And then I'll look for trends in things like composition, subjects, or post-processing. For composition, my composition's improving. Are they stagnating? Did I slide backwards? Taking a look at the photos that I've chosen as my best shots, well, why are they good? What is it about, in this case, the composition that I like? Is it a bolder framing of the subject? Is it a simpler composition? Have I isolated elements better? Have I done a better job at eliminating unnecessary elements from a scene? When I look at the subjects that I've photographed, am I photographing the same subjects over and over? Am I doing a change in subject? Is my photography branching out? Each offers different opportunities. If it's the same subject, that's great, but maybe you want to branch out. Maybe that's something you can do to grow. Or do you want to drill down into that subject and refine other things about the subjects? Am I getting close up? Am I doing wide shots? Are they concrete, clear subjects, or are they abstract? These are all things that you can measure yourself against yourself and see, what's the opportunity here? Is there an area that I can explore more? Or am I happy with the subjects I've chosen and I want to get deeper into them and refine on that particular subject? Post-processing is another area, taking a look at how you processed photos in the past versus the present. Your skills changed, the tools we use get better. Is there a processing reason you prefer one photo over another? And if so, if you're looking at an older photo and you say, wow, I like that image, but man, if I had the processing chops that I do now, what would I do differently? Well, grab that photo and do like a photo redo and reprocess it with your newer skills or your newer tools. It's usually redoing an older photo. Every once in a while, I'll see a photo that I've taken more recently, but I look at a processing style that I was using a couple of years ago and say, I need to try that. And it's almost like digging back into the past to find that interesting look. And when I want to say retro, it's not to be a retro look, but a retrospective way of processing something that is current. So this is all in the area of using that metadata to build up these collections and then look at them to measure your growth. Composition, subjects, post-processing. Look for those trends in your work and translate those to potential opportunities to grow your craft. The second thing I do is look for recipes for success. As you review your collections of photos, pay close attention to your very best photos. In my case, the 5-star photos. Why do you like them so much? I mentioned this a bit in the first part about measuring growth. What is it about the photo that makes it a 5-star photo? Is it the subject, something unique? Is it the composition? Is it something about the camera technique that you used? An example from my past is I have an old film photo I took in Prague that I just really, really liked. And I took this photo well before I really had an appreciation for compositional rules, light and shadow, and all this type of stuff. And for whatever reason, I liked the photo. Fast forward a few years, I actually paid attention to the photo, studied it, and realized that there was a clear sense of scale in the photo. There were great angles, lines leading from corners, walking the eye through the frame, and all of that contributed to why I liked this photo. And that's something I can use as a recipe for future photos. That one in particular is probably one of the reasons when I compose photos, I'm always looking for diagonals, things that lead in from the corners to draw a person's eye into my photos. If you pop over to stopdownpodcast.com for this week's episode, I'll put this photo I took in Prague up there so you can know what I'm speaking to here right now. Another thing to look for when you're looking for a recipe for success in your best photos, what time were they taken? Were they morning photos? Were they evening photos? Was the morning or evening something that helped accentuate the subject? What time of year was it? Spring versus autumn, winter versus summer? Take a look at the lighting. We've got 3 basic types of lighting: front lit, back lit, side lit. How did those affect how your reaction to the photo was? Is that something that is a recipe for success? I'm thinking like side lighting near the beginning or the end of the day, really long shadows. Did that create more dynamic elements? These things in photography all tend to intermingle. I get a long shadow, and if I compose in a certain way, that creates a line, and that adds to the dynamic nature of the photo. So the point being, study your best work and take the lessons that you learn from those best photos and make them part of your next shoot. It can be a recipe for your next successful photo. The third thing we can do with these collections of our best work is find creative opportunities. And the first couple of things I've mentioned, looking at your composition or looking at your subject choice and using that to decide, do I need to drill down further into a genre? Do I want to branch out into a different genre or a different subject? Those are opportunities to grow as an artist, stretch yourself and try something different, or refine and drill down and really master a particular segment of photography. Another way to look for creative opportunities is using the metadata from our cameras. Take a look at the camera settings used for your best photos. What was the most common focal range that you used, or the most common aperture that you used? And heck, if you're really into this stuff, you can go graph these numbers or put them on a pie chart or something like that. But if one slice of this pie chart, say, is way bigger than the others, you've identified your comfort zone. And that represents an opportunity to step outside of it. So using the data on your lenses, your aperture, your focal length, all of those things can show you where your best photos are being taken, lends itself to recipe for success. It also represents an opportunity to branch out and try something different or try something new. Those are a few ways that I'll use this metadata, this artistic metadata, to help me grow as an artist. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to say it's easy to stay diligent and rate every photo that comes into your library. Culling is a necessary step in our photography. Objectively reviewing our work isn't easy. It takes effort. Here's another way to describe it. It's simple. It's not easy. Devising a rating scheme is simple. The act of actually applying a rating to a photo is simple. Building these collections is simple, but the continued sustained effort to rate your photos week in and week out is not easy. It takes time. Taking time to self-critique is an investment, but it's an investment that's rewarding. And the reflection that you can take on your own work is incredibly illuminating. You can build your own metadata time machine, and it will help you grow as an artist. Well, little studio news this week. I'm about 10 years into this sustained effort of rating my photos, and I've got most of the data. Admittedly, I did find some photos that I didn't rate, and I need to go back and do that. And I hadn't yet done this 2019 to 2018 comparison of my work. So I thought I'd go do that and share what I found for my own work with you all here on the podcast. So in this growth area, did I improve as an artist? I think that I did overall. What I found was interesting almost immediately that from 2018 to 2019, I had much fewer high-rated 4 and 5-star photos. In 2018, I had a little over 300, and 9 of those were 5 stars. In 2019, I had 7 5-star photos, but only 171 that I considered really good, those 4 and 5. So my higher percentage of 5-star photos, that's good. That means I'm getting more real, out of this world shots than I did before. I also noticed some areas where I didn't grow in 2019. In my 2018 photos, I had more variety of subjects. I had a few people shots, I had some close-ups, I had more abstracts, whereas in 2019, my photos were squarely in the landscape genre, and the seascapes were by far the predominant types of photos that I had in there. Conversely, I had more aperture variety in 2019, whereas in my 2018 photos, more than 70% of my best photos were either f11 or f16, and that was it. Where in 2019, I started to explore more of shallower depths of field with some of the photos. And that was by design. The examination I did comparing 2017 to 2018, that led to saying, hey, there's an opportunity here for you to do more with different depths of field than just the classic f8, f11, f16 kind of landscape area. I will say across the board, my subjects have always been just well defined. I had very few abstract photos in there, so that's an area that represents an opportunity, a creative opportunity. Let's see, recipes for success. The real things I saw in my work there: diagonals in composition. I mentioned that in the earlier segment of the podcast. The fixed elements are easier to do with diagonals, but I noticed that even with cloud shapes, I was using those to create diagonals by positioning the camera properly, and that was really cool. I also found that I have gotten better at using negative space. In particular, there's a photo where I have a lone surfer walking in on the Oregon coast, and was able to have very minimal surround on this surfer, and the fact that the surfer's there really makes the photo. It's the opposite of dead space, right? In the negative space reinforces my subject, and I'll make a point to put that photo on stopdownpodcast.com as well, so you can see that one. My creative opportunities are tighter focal lengths. I'm still shooting very, very wide, and so I have an opportunity to do more with close-ups, and maybe that means I should be looking at some abstract landscapes, water swirls or interesting patterns in rock or sand. Maybe macro, although that would probably mean getting a macro lens, because I can only get so close to something and still be able to focus with my standard lenses. So that was the outcomes of my examination of my work. So I certainly have several opportunities for 2020 to grow my artistry. There's a fun news story I came across that lends itself to this topic. There was a professional photographer who does boudoir images. He did a video looking at his previous photos, and it kind of becomes a cringe moment where you look at your older work and go, oh my gosh, I thought that was good. And it's an interesting watch. I'll put the link in the show notes if you'd like to see that. I think every photographer goes through these cycles where we think we're good at what we're doing and hopefully we're improving, and then you'll look back at your work in a few years and go, oh wow, I thought I knew what I was doing, and Oh man, I've learned so much more. I wish I could go back and reshoot that. So check this one out. It's a fun watch. A very special thank you to members of the Patreon community and our newest member, Aaron. Aaron, welcome aboard. Thanks very much for your support. I cannot tell you enough how much I appreciate the Patreon community. It is your support that makes this podcast possible, and it helps thousands of other photographers enjoy our craft. If you're interested in learning more about the Patreon community, check the show notes, and there's also a button on every page of stopdownpodcast.com where you can learn more about it. Well, that wraps up this week's episode. I hope this encourages you to get those ratings on your photos, build up that metadata base, and use it to grow as an artist. Look at your old work, look at your new work, and find the opportunities for the growth. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please tell a friend about the Stop Down Photography Podcast. You can also rate and review it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you're getting this podcast. If there is a rate button or a review button, really would appreciate you letting me know what you think of the show. And until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Have fun.